WWE star is released, they often find themselves in need of a little bit of rehab. Not so much for their battered bodies, though I'm sure that's also more than necessary, but for their reputations, which may have taken a hit thanks to the sports entertainment juggernaut's apathy, bad booking, or sometimes their own shortcomings and failure to, grab the brass ring and all that. Once released, some fade into obscurity, others coast along as an ex-WWE talent, but a few decide to see their release not as the end of the road, but as an opportunity to prove the doubters wrong outside of the system. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are 10 released WWE stars who rebuilt their reputations. Join us.
But before we start, today's list is sponsored by NordVPN. We at Cultaholic truly believe that Nord is the best service of its kind. Firstly, it's super easy to use. Connect with one click or enable auto-connect for zero-click protection. There are over 5,300 servers in 60 countries, which is a hell of a lot. It has amazing speed, confirmed by the speed tests. NordVPN is the fastest VPN out there, and it's on every major platform. Oh, and there's a brand new threat protection feature, offering protection from trackers, malware, and even pop-ups and other intrusive ads. Great for browsing mucky websites, speaking from experience. So here's how I use Nord. Obviously, I live in the United Kingdom, but with NordVPN, I could set myself to be anywhere in the world virtually and access content from those regions. So this means, if I fancied it, I could set myself to be somewhere else in the world virtually and sign up for a certain sports entertainment network for a much cheaper price. Or, if I happen to live in the United States, I could sign up for that sports entertainment network, even though it doesn't really exist in the United States anymore. No peacocking about, just great quality graps for a much cheaper price. It's the equivalent of buying a cup of fancy coffee every month. A small price to pay, I'm sure you'll agree, for premium cybersecurity and access to a whole range of entertaining content. Oh, and there's even a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if NordVPN isn't for you, you can get your money back, no bother at all. So grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by heading to nordvpn.com/cultaholic. There is a link in the description below, obviously, and get a huge discount on your NordVPN plan, plus brand new threat protection, plus an additional month for free. nordvpn.com/cultaholic. And remember, if it's not for you, you can get your money back. 30-day money-back guarantee. You cannot say fairer than that, but trust me, you're not going to want to get rid of this. Pays for itself. nordvpn.com/cultaholic. Click the link below.
Number 10, Jamaal. A super agile Samoan super heavyweight with seemingly unlimited potential, the WWE career of Eddie Fatu, who originally wrestled for the company as Jamaal, had a turbulent start. The 3-minute warning man quickly earned a reputation for being reckless with the well-being of his opponents/victims, including non-wrestlers like Lillian Garcia, Pat Patterson, and, the lesbians. He was subsequently de-pushed and was already on thin ice when he and his wife got into a violent altercation with an off-duty police officer during a drunken incident at a bar. That was the beginning of the end for Jamaal, who was released in June of 2003. A post-WWE stint in early-day NWA TNA didn't exactly put the wrestling world on notice, but he soon became a top name overseas for All Japan. A World Tag Team Champion for the league, Jamaal was also pushed as a contender to All Japan's main prize, the Triple Crown Heavyweight title. His prominent positioning reflected his performances as his game noticeably improved and he started making good on the promise that many had seen in him even during his pre-WWE days. Watching Jamaal's development from afar, WWE signed him up again in early 2006 and brought him back as Umaga. Sorry, Umanga. Number 9, Albert. With the backing of backstage power players John Laurinaitis and Fit Finlay, Matt A-Train Bloom got a renewed push on SmackDown at the end of 2002 after months of spinning his wheels on weekend show Velocity. Chosen ahead of Matt Hardy to take out and injure Rey Mysterio before feuding with Rey's tag partner Edge, the former Albert was booked as a monster heel on the blue brand, pitted against the likes of Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker, and others in top storylines. A brand switch to Raw saw his fortunes quickly quickly fade as he became little more than a glorified jobber to bigger stars like, Tajiri and Val Venus. Given the sack while out recovering from a torn rotator cuff, Bloom decided to try his luck in Japan once he was fully healed. Making a splash with first All Japan and then New Japan, Giant Bernard was one of the top gaijin in the country and found himself in some big money matches. Calling New Japan his home for 6 very productive years, Big Baldo's growing reputation as a hard-working giant had WWE calling him back home for a blockbuster run where finally he would get the respect he was due. Or not. Number 8, Raven. After a couple of decent spells in ECW and WCW and then ECW again, Raven joined WWE in the fall of 2000. Considering Vince McMahon apparently uttered something along the lines of, "Ugh, who hired Johnny Polo?" when he realized that Scott was back under contract, I'm sure the former ECW champion wasn't getting his hopes high up for the run that followed. All things considered, apart from some decent hardcore stuff, his time in WWE was a bit of a letdown and didn't yield many more highlights than his previous spell as Johnny Polo. When he was released in January of 2003, the thing that surprised people most was that Raven had managed to last that long in the first place, since his presence on TV grew rarer and rarer as time went on. Rather than simply resting on his laurels, Raven took to the indie scene with aplomb once he'd been P45'd. In demand and determined not just to cash in based on reputation alone, Raven did great work for groups like Major League Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and TNA, a textbook example of which was his excellent feud with a young CM Punk, which took place in all 3 promotions and really helped to elevate the straight-edge superstar. Number 7, Hideo Itami. WWE signing of pro wrestling Noah's Kenta caused a great deal of excitement for those who had followed the career of the junior heavyweight ace. One of the most dynamic and explosive performers to come out of the land of the rising sun in many a year, Kenta's imminent arrival was hyped up by WWE themselves, who rolled out the red carpet and the red and yellow menace Hulk Hogan for his official contract signing, which took place on a house show in the Japanese star's homeland. Rechristened Hideo Itami, he was poised to take NXT by storm at a time when the black and gold brand was loaded with favorable opponents. Disappointingly, though there were occasional flashes of brilliance, there was a certain spark missing from Itami's act, and he wasn't helped by persistent injury problems. Officially granted his release on February 22nd, 2019, he later expressed much frustration about his time in WWE. Since signing with New Japan, he has looked much more like the excellent athlete who invented the go to sleep, winning the Never Openweight and IWGP United States titles while putting on some belting matches. Number 6, Scott Steiner. When WWE signed Scott Steiner in late 2002, they knew they were getting damaged goods. But they also knew that Big Papa Pump was a major star, and with heaps of established main event talent at the ready, they took a chance on the performer riddled with injuries and whose best days were clearly behind him. The early signs were positive as Steiner got huge reactions and did great work in promos and segments during his initial feud with Triple H. And then the bell rang, and all the smoke and mirrors in the world couldn't save the knackered genetic freak who, truth be told, wasn't helped at all by being put in there with an opponent who was also on the list of the walking wounded. After the matches with the cerebral assassin bombed, Steiner killed time variously feuding and teaming with Test before being released on August 17th, 2004. WWE had nothing left for him, but in time, TNA would, offering a suitably recovered Big Bad Booty Daddy a platform to show all of the fat asses in the world that he still had some of the old magic. Number 5, Zack Ryder. All things considered, Zack Ryder actually had a hell of a run in WWE. He was there for 15 years, including time in developmental, and was given United States, Intercontinental, and 2 tag team title reigns. But while he was there for an age and got thrown a bone every once in a while, there was the lingering feeling when he was released that Ryder had been capable of so much more and that WWE really dropped the ball with him, especially when he managed to get over organically thanks to the magic of this newfangled technology called the internet. When Broski got named in the first round of COVID cuts, he didn't sit around lamenting what could have been, instead choosing to show his former employer exactly what they missed out on. As Matt Cardona, he has been a revelation on the indie scene, making significant noise in Impact, GCW, and in the NWA. With the handcuffs taken off, Cardona has reminded everyone what a great practitioner of self-promotion he truly is, doing more in a couple of short years than he did in his last 5 under WWE contract. Number 4, Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero was given an ultimatum after turning up to a Raw taping in the dreaded no condition to perform. Either go to rehab or lose your job. Latino Heat chose the former and completed his treatment, but unfortunately relapsed and got arrested for a DUI while preparing for his comeback. WWE had no choice but to let him go, and Guerrero, who was going through a separation from wife Vicky at the time and had hit a personal and professional rock bottom, was forced to hit the indies for the first time in an age. Eddie grafted hard, often in front of minuscule crowds for modest payoffs. Wrestling was basically at that point all he had left, besides the daily battle to maintain his sobriety in the hopes of getting back in WWE's good graces. During this would-be retribution tour, Guerrero crossed paths with future stars like Loki and CM Punk, and wrestled for leagues like Ring of Honor and Australia's WWA. His impressive displays on a tour of New Japan were the clincher that got Eddie re-signed by WWE not long after. Number 3, Rhino. Final proper ECW champion Rhino looked like he was going to be one of the Invasion's only successes when, sadly, he was bit hard by the injury bug and forced to undergo major neck surgery. After recuperating, the man-beast re-emerged on SmackDown and quickly established himself as one to watch in the exciting United States title scene. Regrettably, he seemed to flounder from there, a transfer to Raw and tag team with the also underutilized Tajiri doing little to change his fortunes. Clearly fed up with his lot, the master of the gore let his frustration boil over during WrestleMania 21 weekend, where he got into a heated argument with his soon-to-be ex-wife and smashed a vase at the hotel that talent was staying at. WWE wished him well in his future endeavors following his flowerpot faux pas. Luckily for Rhino though, TNA was starting to build a little bit of momentum around this time, and they were always happy to have someone with WWE name recognition on their roster. His time with the NWA title was fleeting, though nevertheless vindicating for a performer who continued to prove his value as the years went by. Number 2, Drew McIntyre. Tall, good physique, great head of hair. Is it any wonder none other than Vince McMahon himself proclaimed a young Drew McIntyre to be the chosen one and future WWE champion? The Scotsman ticked a lot of the boxes, also having plenty of experience despite his youth, and WWE pushed him hard initially. He went on a lengthy winning streak that saw him bag the Intercontinental title, but when his winning ways came to an abrupt end and he dropped the IC strap, he quickly slid down the card. A tag team title alliance with Cody Rhodes and then a spot in the 3-man band kept him in the mix, but it was hardly the fortune the chairman had predicted for him, was it? When McIntyre was released on June 12, 2014, the most shocking thing about it was that it wasn't shocking at all. Drew's ability had never been in doubt, but perhaps his passion and application of his talent had been. Seeking to change any negative perceptions people may have had on him, McIntyre was a wrestler reborn on the indies and for promotions like Impact, noticeably bettering every aspect of his game to the point that WWE had to take him back. Number 1, Cody Rhodes. The wrestling world at one point looked like Cody's for the taking. A complete natural, it felt like it was only a matter of time before he cemented himself as a main event player like his father Dusty had decades prior. Fans waited, and waited, and waited some more. We waited as he went from plucky rookie to legacy member. We waited as he went from dashing to well-rounded all-rounder teaming to his brother, before we got to Stardust, and we stopped waiting and collectively realized that the American Nightmare probably wasn't going to be headlining a WrestleMania anytime soon. Cody himself was fed up putting on the face paint and decided to ask for his release so that he could see if the grass was greener on the other side. Astutely sharing a checklist of to-dos before hitting the road into the unknown, Rhodes found himself booked here, there, and everywhere before settling in AEW, a company that he had a major role in starting up as an EVP. Now having left Tony Khan's company, you might have noticed that the world is watching to see what the rebuilt grandson of a plumber does next.